Hello, welcome to your Urban Connection. Remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. Now, I want to get right into this story, ladies and gentlemen, because we have some breaking news that just occurred about 2 hours ago in the city of Memphis, Tennessee. Now, if you'll remember, back in 23, about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, there was a brutal, vicious, illegal beating and murder that occurred by 5 police officers against one young black unarmed male because of an alleged traffic stop. So tonight we have news from the trial in Memphis, Tennessee today. And the jury, much to my dismay, has concluded that while 2 officers had pleaded guilty earlier, the other 3 officers that were on trial and were charged with witness tampering and failing to intervene and violation of Tyre Nichols' civil rights. Well, the jury decided and concluded that the 3 officers that were on trial were all guilty of witness tampering and failure to interfere. 2 of those officers were found innocent of violating Mr. Nichols' civil rights. And one was found guilty of violating his civil rights regarding bodily injury. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you something. While this verdict was mixed, and while I feel that all 5 of these officers are going to go to prison, I'm very, very disappointed in these charges and the verdicts. And I'm going to tell you why. I don't care what city you're in, what state you're in, what country you're in. I don't know how in the hell a jury could look at the video of this man being violently beaten, kicked in the face, kicked in the head, used as a human punching bag for these 5 black police officers. Now, Mr. Nichols himself, if you recall, was also a black individual. But as I stated, he was unarmed, was not resisting, and he was pulled from his vehicle by one of these officers and started running. Well, they caught up with him, and when they caught up with him, they began to use him as a human punching bag. And let me just tell you, what we all saw with our own eyes was much worse than what we saw in the beating of Rodney King with our own eyes. So for any jury to tell me that you could look at that video and see the vicious, disturbing, excessive, terrible use of excessive force that was used to kick, maim, injure, and kill Mr. Nichols, and they were not guilty of violating his civil rights? Are you kidding me? In the first place, I'm disappointed they all were not charged with first-degree murder. And I'm going to tell you why. Because one of the officers testified that what happened and what caused the brutal, vicious beating of Mr. Nichols was his running away. Because you see, I guess they have a little silent code among the Memphis police officers that if you run, you will suffer the consequences. And I believe they call it some kind of tax, they call it, when you run. And so this is what they administered, the punishment that they meted out to Mr. Tyre Nichols on that day, not knowing fully well that there were city-installed cameras, video cameras, on the intersection where they alleged and meted out this punishment. Okay, they were not aware of that. So you can see them viciously, holding him up while others punched him, kicking, took turns, misusing, brutally, disturbingly beating this man to death as he is held helpless by 5 police officers. Now, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's talk about what did come out in the trial. And this is very disturbing, but I want to show you what you're about to hear is a part of the culture, and I will say is or was, I'm not even so sure I want to eliminate the word is, of not only the Memphis Police Department, but most police departments across this country. And here's what I'm talking about. One of the officers that pled guilty, his name is Emmett Martin. And Mr. Martin said that Mr. Nichols was helpless while they just blatantly, brutally, viciously plummeted the holy hell out of him. Okay? And he acknowledged that once they had finished beating him unmercifully and killing him, that they all agreed, these 5 officers, they agreed that they would not tell on him and he would not tell on them. That's what you have in most police departments around the country in the United States today. Okay? They hide, they lie, they falsify reports, they do it all to cover up. And here it is. This guy's admitting it. This is what they did. Now, another officer by the name of Desmond Mills took a plea deal, and in the plea deal, the prosecutors agreed to ask for a prison sentence of 15 years for him. Now, on Mr. Martin, who also pled guilty and took a plea deal, but his request for his prison term is 40 years. Now, the other 3 officers that were convicted today on this charge of covering up and witness tampering, their sentence was delayed until, I believe, next week. So the defense can make some kind of motion, I'm not sure what it is, and then they will be sentenced, I believe, at that time. But I cannot believe that any of these guys will do less than 20, a minimum 20 years in prison. I just can't see it. I mean, this young man was less than 1 block away from his home. And if you recall, while he was on the ground, he was screaming and hollering for his mother. They showed him no mercy. This man was left with a young child who today is 7 years old. 7 years old. One of the officers apologized for taking his life, but not doing more. And you know what the officer said? And I want to tell you, this was Desmond Mills. He said that he had hoped that Mr. Nichols would survive and this whole ordeal would just blow away. Really, Mr. Mills? That's what you and the others thought after you beat the holy crap out of this man, kicking him in the face, in the body, beating the heck out of him, brutally, taking turns, using him as a punching bag, and you hope that he would survive. Really, Mr. Mills? See, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens on our streets. And I don't know, for the life of me, I don't understand how any jury of red-blooded Americans, and I don't know what the jury pool consisted of, and how many men, how many women, how many black, how many white, it makes no difference. I don't understand how any jury of red-blooded Americans could look at that video and see the disturbing, vicious, brutal beating that man took. And you you would say that there was no violation of his civil rights? Are you kidding me? You see, this is what happens, and this is why we need serious police reform. Because as I said many times before, as long as there's qualified immunity that is afforded to these police officers, where they can almost get away with anything, this is what kind of verdict you're going to have. And let me just tell you, when I say almost anything, this is another reason. I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is another reason why I'm going to say, if you live in one of the swing states, in Michigan, in Wyoming, in Arizona, Georgia, if you live in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, you must do everything you can do to ensure that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are elected. Because I'm going to tell you why it's important. If Donald Trump is elected, he's already said that he wants to ensure that police officers have total, not qualified, total immunity for their actions. And that means doing just what these officers did, being judge, jury, and prosecutor. Because that's what they did. They were the judge, they were the jury, and they viciously killed or murdered Tyre Nichols on that day in Memphis, Tennessee. So the only way, if you feel as I do about how unjust this verdict was, and let me tell you, to be sure, I don't care what anybody says, Mr. Nichols did not receive justice on today. The mere fact that 3 officers were charged with interfering with a witness or witness tampering, okay, but not finding them guilty of violating his civil rights, there is no justice in that verdict. There is none. It sends a terrible message to other law enforcement agencies across this country. And we've had enough of it. So Memphis, I don't know what the hell these people were thinking about. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, you've got to do everything within your power. You've got to vote like you've never voted before in this upcoming election, and you've got just 3 weeks to do it. You've got to make sure that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance do not get anywhere near that White House. I'm telling you, if you do, you'll be doing yourself, and you'll be doing your community, and you'll be doing your country a good thing. I promise you. You've heard about Project 2025? Well, but you haven't heard about what Donald Trump intends to do, and especially the black males. Doesn't make any difference whether they're guilty. You don't give a damn if they're guilty of anything or not. If the police beats the shit out of them, if the police brutally murders them, if they use excessive force by several officers, he doesn't care. They should be granted total immunity. And if you're like me, you don't want to live in a country like that. You don't want to have people in power that don't give a damn about your civil rights, that the police can come in and do anything at any time that they want to you. Now, not only does this case exist, but you saw what happened to Breonna over in Louisville. Ladies and gentlemen, this is serious stuff. This is serious stuff. And I want to tell you one thing. I don't care who the hell you are. Do not think it cannot happen to you. Don't think for 1 minute that. Don't think you're above and beyond. I don't care if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, if you're independent. I don't care what you are. It can happen to you. Because as I said, what you witnessed, and this is admitted here by basically one of these officers, was the culture of most police departments across this United States. Don't tell on me, and I won't tell on you. That has to stop. And you, using your voice and using your vote, have the means and the ability to stop it. And then we have to ensure that police reform is a major part of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's agenda once they're elected in an office. We must flood them with telephone calls, emails, text messages, whatever it takes to let them know that we're counting on them to bring about what's long overdue police reform. We've got to put a stop to rogue officers having their way. Not only in Memphis, not only in Louisville, not only in Dallas, not only in Detroit, but all across America. Okay? Do your part. Don't leave it to someone else. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you. Do your part. This is not a spectator sport. You are to participate because, like I said, it could happen to you at any time on these streets of America. Thanks for watching and have a good evening.